Okay, so we're in lesson 3, and the question for today is, how can medical images and diagrams help us figure out more about the structures in our body? Okay, so yesterday and the last couple of days we've been looking at this chicken wing and what it tells us. So we figured out that skin covers a body part, muscles help us move, bones are there for structure and also for moving. So we were able to use the chicken wing to find that out by moving it back and forth with the muscle and seeing what happens there. So the next question is, why were we using a chicken wing instead of a human foot? We can look at our feet. We can take off our socks and shoes and look at our feet. But the one problem is we can't see inside the foot. So we have that injured student, and we don't want to rip his foot open and see what's going on. So we have some tools we can use to look inside our bodies. And two of those are an X-ray and an MRI machine. So on the left-hand side here, we got an X-ray. So if you've never been for a regular X-ray besides the dentist, just kind of show you what's here. So there's like a table, and you would lay down on that. They can move this part right here. So this little circular part right here is where the X-rays come out. So they can move this up and down and across the table here to find out where they need to get the X-ray of. So if it's by your foot, they'll slide it over by your foot. If it's your chest, they'll put it by the chest, whatever. And then they can take X-rays of that. This is an MRI machine. Here is a bed where you would lay down. Your head would go right there. And then they would raise this up and then push you inside this device here. And I don't know too much about these, but there's something magnetic in here because MRI stands for magnetic resonance imaging. So somehow there's a magnet in here, and they can see parts of your body. I don't know how it works. But those are the two things that they can use to see inside your body. So we're going to take a look at some X-rays and some MRIs and kind of see how they compare. So we want to look at them. We're not going to do this part with you guys. If you've got your folder, you can kind of jot some notes down, but it's not that important right now. So let's take a look at some images. So here's our first one. And so we have an X-ray of the foot. We've got an MRI of the foot. And with X-rays, we can see bone. So you can see all the bones of your body. You see like a little ghostly image here. So it's just like the outline of the foot itself. So you can see the toe, like the skin on the toe up there. So you can see all the toes. You can see the bones inside each toe. And that's pretty much all you see in an X-ray is just bone and like a ghostly image of skin. Here's an MRI of a foot. Again, so you can see the bones here. So you can see all the bones in part of the ankle and the foot itself, toes up here. But it looks different. It's kind of weird how the toes are so short, but here they go really long. But we're looking at something different, and later on I'll explain why we're looking at something a little different here. But this part here, this dark gray, is actually muscle. So not only can you see bone with an MRI, you can also see muscle. And then we can see more skin up here. So we got some skin, bones, muscle. So that's the foot. We can look at, where's my next one? Here's the knee. So here's an X-ray of a knee. That looks like this is the back side because I think that's your kneecap right there. And I think that's looking through the body. So I think that's on the back side. So we're looking at the back of the knee, and that's the front from the other side. So we got the femur, which is your thigh bone. This is your two bones of your lower leg down here. So this is the top, bottom. This would be your knee right here where it bends. So you can see it's not connected. It's a joint, so the two bones meet, but they don't connect. Over here, we have an MRI of a knee. So you got the top bone, you got the bottom bone. And you can definitely see skin over here. On both sides, it's a white area. We got these dark gray areas. That's the muscle. And then it looks like there's some stuff in between the bone here. We're not sure what that is. The last one to look at is a hand. So here's the hand. So again, we see the bones of the hand. So here's the thumb, 4 fingers, the palm with all the bones there. Here's your wrist with lots of bones. And here's the 2 bones in your lower arm. Over in the MRI, again, we see a thumb, 4 fingers, Again, we can see some muscle. This dark gray stuff is muscle. You got the bones down here. We can see some skin around the fingers, around the thumb. So a little different information is given from each one. Okay, so we'll go back to our slides. So after looking at the X-rays and MRIs, we can definitely get some help looking on the inside. We can actually see inside without having to cut things open. Similar and different, both show bone. Both can show skin, but we see more detail in the skin from an MRI. We can see muscle with an MRI, but not an X-ray. So some differences in the two ways we can see things. Next thing, we want to talk about cross-sections. So cross-sections are what scientists sometimes use to explain things. So a cross-section here is our Earth. So here's the oceanic plate and a continental plate with volcanoes and magma, ocean and land. And we use a cross-section because if I look down on the Earth, all I see is the water and the land. I don't get to see what it looks like from the side, which is what the cross-section is. So sometimes in science we want to see cross-sections so we can see a different way of looking at something. And I just did a demonstration really quick to show us, like, what about cross-sections? I'm going to do some stuff here with some strawberries to show you what cross-sections are kind of like. So here's a strawberry. And I asked the class, how can we cut a strawberry? And they said in half. And I'm like, well, how in half? Because there's lots of ways to do it. I could do it from top to bottom. I could do it side to side. I could do it diagonally. I could do lots of different ways. So we'll start with the easy one. We'll go straight through from top to bottom. So I'm just cutting straight down through the strawberry. And what happens is we get a cross-section through the top and bottom. This is called what they call a longitudinal cross-section, because if this was the globe, and we go from the North Pole at the top to the South Pole at the bottom, we're following lines of longitude. So this is what they call a longitudinal cross-section. And that's what a strawberry would look like on the inside if we did it that way. I can also take another strawberry and I can cut it in half like the equator. So I can go across it. So I'm going to do that. And when I do this, I get a whole different way of looking at it. You can see that this was a strawberry shape, kind of like a heart shape. But when I do a cross-section this way, it just kind of turns kind of circular. I only see one little opening here, just a small thing, but here there's a large opening because I cut it a different way. Okay. I can also do something very different. I can slice it. Just going to move that up a little bit. So I can slice it. So this is what they would normally call a cross-section, where you're going across it. And the other one was a longitudinal section. The last one, I'm going to just do thin slices. So I'm just kind of slicing off, and I'm going to just lay these out how they're coming off. And this will give us a different way of looking at a strawberry. So you can see I go from small pieces on the outside. I can start seeing the shape of the strawberry. And I just keep going across. So that's kind of like the center of it, and then we get to the outside again, so it's going to start getting a little smaller again. I'll try to do one small slice on this end here. Won't get off my finger. There we go. So we can see how we can do a section like layers or slices from a strawberry to see how it looks different. So all three of these gives us a different way of looking at it. So just a longitudinal cross-section, straight down the middle, cross-section going across, and then slicing it so we can see how it looks in different areas. In MRIs, we can do the same thing. When you go inside the machine, it takes many, many, many pictures of your body, the section you want to look at, so if you're looking at the knee or whatever, and it can take slices of images. So it's not hurting you, it's just using the computer to take slicing images like we saw in the strawberry. So in this picture here, they're showing us a horizontal MRI of the knee. So we're kind of cutting across the leg and then looking down into the leg. So this is your kneecap. There's your thigh bone. We have some skin. Here's your muscle, a couple different muscles here in different areas. And then this is a vertical MRI. So now we're going from top to bottom through the knee. So here's your femur, that's your thigh bone right there. This is your lower leg bone. Your knee would be this area whole, the whole thing here would be your knee. And we got some skin on the outside, some muscle is dark gray. So two different images, kind of like cutting the strawberry in half going across, or going up and down like the first time we cut the strawberry. So up and down cuts, going across cuts. Next we want to look at what do these things show us. So we're going to take a look at zoomed pictures of these here. So I'm going to switch to those next. An MRI, horizontal, so we're going across the leg, and a diagram. So the diagram is kind of showing us what we're seeing and what it would really look like if we could just draw it. So these two gray things in the drawing are the bone, which are these two parts here. The dark gray here is this red stuff, which is the muscle. The very light stuff on the outside is the skin. This next layer down underneath the skin is actually the fat. This yellow part is the fat. And then we got these dark circles, and we've got these green circles and red things, and we're not sure what those are. We'll take a look at those in a little bit, though. So that's showing a cross-section of a knee and a diagram of the knee, so we can kind of compare to see what we're looking at. We've got a vertical MRI of the knee, so we're going up and down. Here's a picture of the up and down. So we got the bone and a bone. We've got muscle up on the top left and the right. Here's our muscle here. It's a dark gray stuff again. Skin on the outside with some fat underneath it. Also some more of these green and red things. We're not sure what those are. So just, again, showing you how you look at these diagrams and what it does show us. Next, we're going to look at parts of the body, the skin, the muscle, and the bone in very close-up detail in illustrations. So we're going to take a look at those. Diagram of the skin. So here's the skin on top. There's like a hair. We have fat. We got muscle way down in there. And then here's those red and green things. So the green is representing nerves that would be able to feel things. And then the purple or the pink things are blood vessels where blood would go through. So that's what we were seeing in those other diagrams, was blood vessels and nerves. So this is the skin, so a close-up nice diagram of it. Here's a picture of some muscle, a diagram. So here's the bone back here. Here's the muscle, and there's a thing called a tendon. A tendon is part of your body that would connect a muscle to a bone. So we talked about moving the bicep. If your bicep pulls, it pulls on a tendon, and that pulls on the bone. So that's what actually makes your bones move. The muscle is changing, pulling on the tendon, which pulls on the bone. Again, inside the muscle, we see these red and green things. Green things, again, are nerves. Blood vessels are these pink ones. So if you hurt a muscle, you bleed because there's blood in there and blood vessels. And also when you bruise a muscle, it hurts because there's nerves in there, so you feel it. So the last picture is of the bone itself. So here's the bone. We got this thing called cartilage that kind of cushions the space between bones. We've got a thing called bone marrow, which we haven't found out about yet. But around the bone and inside the bone are blood vessels and also nerves, which explains why if you break a bone, it hurts, because there are nerves in there, so it feels the pain. So we've seen some close-ups of what's inside those three things. So let's go back really quick to look at some of our MRIs. So if we go back to this MRI, I think we start seeing some other things. So the stuff that's between the bones is cartilage, and these dark circular things are kind of representing the green and red here. So some of these are going to be nerves, and some are going to be blood vessels. And I wouldn't pretend to know which ones are which. But some of these are going to be nerve cells or nerve tissue, and some are going to be blood vessels in there. So a nice little interpretation of how to look at these things and what you can actually see. We'll go back to our slides. And so we come to the end of today's lesson, and our next thing we want to look at is, having found out these things, what do we think blood vessels and nerves, why are they found in the skin, the muscle, and the bone? Like, why would you have them in all three places? What's the purpose? Like, how does the body get helped out because the body is made that way? And what do we think the blood vessels and nerves do? So that'll be what we look at next time.